Hey guys, so I had these dreams. I can't give you the exact dates at the moment. For now, I'm just going to say late 2022. I think it was around October 2022. I'll just say October 2022. So well over a year ago now. I'll get straight into it. I'll give the dreams, then I'll give an interpretation, and then I'll give a description. Actually, in this case, the dreams were pretty literal, so it's not necessary to really do an interpretation, so 1 and 2 will be the same thing. Okay, here we go. Here we go. So the first dream I'm going to talk about, I was shown a panning aerial view of Aro Valley, which is a place in Wellington City. It's a little suburb which is quite sheltered from the wind, although you could say the rain as well. It's a little bit damp. It's notoriously damp. As Wellington has become a wealthier city in recent years, the house prices there have exploded. But I actually lived there when I went to university in the early 2010s, and it was still hadn't been gentrified so much then. But yeah, it's undergone quite a lot of change in the last 20 years as more money has come into Wellington, and Wellington City has got wealthier overall. But it's a beautiful place because you're very close to the center of the city, but you're surrounded by native forest, mostly regenerating native forest. But there are trails and up into the hills above and mountain bike trails. And I would see rare endangered parrots of a species called the Kaka, which is a native New Zealand indigenous parrot from a family of parrots. It's actually, biologically speaking, one of the oldest family of parrots, and very different to other parrots in other parts of the world. Very beautiful, very intelligent species and endangered. And I'd have them squawking and flying around the place where I lived because they were flying out from Zealandia, which is a wildlife sanctuary. I'll put a link to in the description box to a page of what that bird is, page about Kaka and some information about Zealandia, just so you can kind of get an idea of the setting. But so in the dream, it was in Aro Valley, but it wasn't as it is now. It was in the future, the near future. I think we're looking later this decade, probably around 2029 is when I've been shown New Zealand will be invaded. 2029, 2030, somewhere between 2027 and 2032. I've been over that many times in previous videos. I can't say for sure exactly when. No man knoweth the hour. Key piece of biblical wisdom. No one actually gets given exact dates for prophecies from God. It just doesn't happen. You can at best get rough ranges. But it was probably 2029, 2030, but it's somewhere within that 5-year window. And I just saw really intense, heavy fighting as Chinese troops were moving up that valley. And I could see, one second. Could see bursts of heavy machine gun fire and traces. Traces, for those who don't know, I think from memory that the ammo rounds, bullets that have a coating of phosphorus, so it's called a tracer, so you can see where it's going. And it was getting towards the end of the day. The dreams have been shown where there's this battle that takes place when Wellington itself is invaded, the key battle for Wellington. A lot of them I've been shown, like the heaviest fighting is towards the end of the day. So might be that's the case. Probably, I don't know, but quite possibly God is showing me that this battle, the heaviest fighting will be at the end of a day in the year it happens. And there were all these Chinese troops kind of coming up this valley, and there was a knot of resistance from the New Zealand forces. They're going to conscript a lot of people. I've done previous videos about that. They're going to conscript probably tens of thousands of civilians really quickly and give them simple training to fight to stop the invasion. And we won't be able to stop it, but we'll at least go down fighting. And they were just coming up the valley, as I said, machine gun tracer fire. And it was really, really heavy, really intense fighting. It felt really desperate from the New Zealand side in some ways, but also the feeling was, everyone knew deep down we were going to lose, but the feeling was we're going to take as many of you with us as you take us down. So we're going to kill as many people as possible, even though we know most of us are going to die. And in the dream, like the New Zealanders knew it's not a good idea to be taken alive by these troops. I've had other dreams about that. It's best to die in battle. The Ukrainians found that out against Russia. There's much worse things that can happen to you than dying in battle from a headshot or being shot in the stomach and bleeding out in 1 or 2 minutes. There's 500 million fates worse than a relatively quick death from a bullet in a modern battle on a modern battlefield. And that was, it's important I mention that, because that's partly why I could see the fighting was so heavy, because the New Zealanders were outclassed in terms of, we were outnumbered, we were outgunned, but we were still putting up ferocious resistance, and it was taking time for it was Chinese, Russian, North Korean. I haven't actually, to be fair, I haven't seen the North Korean troops, haven't been shown by God, the North Korean troops in the Battle of Wellington have been definitely shown Russian and Chinese troops. So it was taking time for them to clear the city and win the battle, despite them having massive advantage in both equipment, level of technology, and number of people, number of troops. And then so Aro Valley was one of these places that they were struggling to take in this massive battle to capture the capital city of New Zealand, Wellington, in World War III. But and then God zoomed in, although Holy Spirit showed me something rather, zoomed in, and I was shown a device on the side of a large, mature, that is, Pinus radiata tree, Radiata Pine, also known as the Monterey pine. I'll put a link in the description box to what that species of tree is. There's lots of them in New Zealand. It's the main species of tree grown on forestry plantations here. There is around 1 million hectares of Pinus radiata in New Zealand, and there are some of them seeds get out from the plantations, and then you get what they call wilding pines, which are kind of stands of this tree, and then in that context it becomes an invasive species. And there are lots of wilding stands of Pinus radiata in Aro Valley, and I know because I used to walk up tracks around them and see them every day and live around them. The Kaka parrots really like them, actually, because they need old growth forests with large hollow cavities large enough that they can nest in them. So I know those trees in that valley quite well. And what God showed me was a kind of booby trap of VC, Viet Cong style booby trap that was really intricate, that New Zealanders were using to kill. We weren't hunting possums and killing, we weren't hunting and killing possums or pigs or deer. We were killing Chinese and Russians and North Koreans. And it was basically God showing me Kiwi ingenuity being used to make really sophisticated traps and booby traps to just kill as many of them as possible before we went down, because deep down the people, the generals all knew that we weren't going to win. I think not all the people knew that. You can't really. So a lot of them knew it. I think deep down a lot of them knew that we had no chance, but we could just take a lot of them down. Take a lot of them down as they defeated us, but not everyone realized that we had no chance, but a lot got that, and certainly the higher ups, all the generals and the elites, the military elites, they all knew we had no chance. But we were certainly making it extremely difficult for them, not just using weapons, but using improvised traps. So just like New Zealand is leading the way in the world in conservation in the area of removing invasive mammalian pests from islands. And to do this, you have to create new kinds of trap, and there's multiple New Zealand companies doing this. So God showed me, that's it. Kiwi ingenuity was being used not just for peaceful purposes, but it will be used in wartime. And the traps weren't turning the tide of the battle, but they were killing a lot of Chinese and North Koreans, Chinese and Russian soldiers. Chinese and Russian soldiers, possibly North Koreans too. Wasn't shown that in that one. All right, that's the first dream. Give me a sec. Okay, so the second dream I had is about the true purpose of why the Chinese will be in New Zealand. So others have been shown the same thing. I've been shown Russia will be a lot more brutal. for some reason. Oh, there are specific reasons, and I've had other dreams where God's explained to me why the Russians will be particularly brutal towards us. It's to do with contempt and disgust at the level of ungodliness and of our society. It's kind of, there's a spiritual element to it, and but I'll leave that for a separate video. I had a dream about that in the last 7 nights actually. So in this other dream, I had this about, I think it was about October 22 and 2022 as well. I was shown a scene in Taranaki, that part of New Zealand, which is about halfway up the west coast of the North Island. I'll put a link in the description box again so you can see where it is for those of you who are interested. New Zealanders will know where it is, obviously. And I could see this area under military occupation by the Chinese, and everything was pretty calm. This was like 1 to 3 years after the invasion, and the country had been occupied for some time by this point, and things had settled down and were more stable. And the Holy Spirit showed me a scene of pastoral, land, just farmland, and I could see Chinese military people in vehicles, and they were just, you could just see the country was under occupation, but things had settled down, and the people weren't exactly, New Zealanders obviously were far from happy about it. But what God showed me, interestingly, I was, via the Holy Spirit showed me and told me in the dream, the main reason the Chinese want New Zealand, interestingly, they're just interested in money. That's what she told me. She said that they'll be here primarily for money. They're most interested in that, and also for the rich farmland. For those of you who don't know, this is actually really interesting, and this explains partly why New Zealand will be invaded in World War III. There's going to be huge famines and huge food insecurity for various reasons globally over the next 30 years, and New Zealand produces enough food to feed 50 million people. We've only got 5, so we produce 10 times more food than we need. And so we're like a breadbasket from a global perspective. And I was shown that's the main reason China wants to come here, to pull us in as part of their expanded communist empire. And I mean, there'll be other things they can exploit for money, but it was mainly like a lot of it I was shown was agriculture and food security for their people as well. But I mean, they'll exploit all kinds of stuff. I don't even want to think about it, dude, because they work in conservation. Hopefully they leave most of the old growth forests and the national parks alone. Hopefully we've got some strong kaitiaki. Kaitiaki. It's a Maori word for guardian spirits, protecting groves of temperate old growth New Zealand rainforest that I really like. But I don't want to even think about it, dude. Yeah, wow. And yeah, they were just, that was that part that was just showing they were pretty busy, the Chinese, getting, organizing everything and just sucking all these resources back out of New Zealand and off to China, and basically plundering the country's wealth, and exploiting it. Oh yeah, and I was showing New Zealanders like the Chinese owned all the businesses. Other people have had dreams about China invading. For example, the Philippines have been shown this. They'll own all the businesses, but New Zealanders will be kept on as kind of peasants and serfs to do the simple jobs, but will definitely be very much second-class citizens in our own country, the ones who survived the invasion. And I've been shown around, it's about 15% of the population will be killed. 15? I think it's about 15%. 750,000 people are going to die, have lost their lives. New Zealanders, by the time the Russians, the Chinese, and the North Koreans leave, there might be some other groups there involved. Yeah, so a lot are going to die, and life is going to be far from fun for the survivors. At best, you're going to have a very unhappy civilian experience, being kind of a slave and a serf, and very much exploited class of people based on your nationality and ethnicity in the country of your birth. Just another reason to get out if you can, if you're not planning to fight. Been over that in many other dreams. Okay, second part of this dream. This was really interesting. God showed me a New Zealand woman. She was the middle aged, getting older, towards getting towards her elderly years. So I would say she'd be early 50s. And she looked like she was from just a small New Zealand rural town, had kind of farming type clothes on. And these Chinese soldiers walked up to her and they injected her with something. And then she kind of had this funny face. She sort of smiled, and her eyes were kind of rolling around in their sockets. And then there were little cartoonish spirals around her head. And then she just passed out. So I don't know exactly what God was showing me there to be honest exactly. I think it was suggesting that they're going to be using mind control to kind of sedate the population so that they don't fight back and so that they're not too unruly. I think they might actually be, it was saying that they may actually actively drug New Zealanders to make them more obedient, docile, and compliant so that they don't resist. That's what it seemed to be suggesting, that it was actually like something they'll put in the water, or definitely they'll be doing mind control. But in any case, they were taking whatever form it takes. They were putting a lot of money and resources into mind control, whether it was through propaganda or actually like physical injections that will physically sedate people, New Zealanders, so that they didn't try to resist or disrupt the occupation, and that they just kept their place. They just knew their place as, exploited slaves in a country that, of their birth, the country of their birth that had now been conquered by militarily superior and numerically superior outside forces. The third part of the dream was interesting. It said the problems with the Holy Spirit showed me and told me that God did via the Holy Spirit, that the problems with the Chinese will start when some New Zealanders start killing Chinese and stop cooperating in the way they want. And what I got shown and told is that the Chinese response to this will be very severe, and that in turn will cause a ripple effect where it will piss off other New Zealanders who weren't previously involved in the resistance movements. The resistance movement will start to expand and grow very quickly, because initially it won't be that many people, but very quickly many New Zealanders are going to have friends and family who have been tortured and killed in the resistance movement, and they will feel really angry, and that's how it's going to start to spread. That's what I was shown. And it was basically shown that that's how the resistance movement will start to grow really big and really fast towards the Chinese in particular. Yeah. And it was basically showing that New Zealanders becoming just extremely angry at what was happening to the resistance members of the resistance movement. And there was actually another part to that dream, but I'll leave that for another video. So that's that. I hope that's of some value. Thank you. Cheers. Oh, sorry, I should add, before I finish off, I believe those dreams are prophetic. I believe they're from God. Please refer to the disclaimer in the description box below. Yeah, and I hope it's been of some interest and some value. Thank you.